Jack the Ripper has striked again.
Today, we are diving into one of the most infamous mysteries in history, Jack the Ripper. This notorious serial killer terrorized the streets of Whitechapel, London in the 19th century, claiming the lives of at least 5 women. But who was Jack the Ripper? Let's explore some historical information and a few conspiracy theories surrounding this figure. Jack the Ripper's reign of terror began in 1888 and lasted for only a few short months. But the impact of his crimes continues to captivate and horrify people to this very day. The victims were all alleged prostitutes, leading to theories that the killer may have had a strong hatred or disdain for women. The brutal nature of his murders, with the victims being horribly mutilated and disemboweled, only added to the fear and intrigue surrounding Jack the Ripper. Despite extensive police investigations and hundreds of letters allegedly sent by the killer taunting the police, Jack the Ripper was never caught. Now let's dive into the stories and the murders of London's East End and of Jack the Ripper. We start the story off of Jack the Ripper in the foggy streets of London's Whitechapel district in the 19th century. The crimes span from August to November of 1888. The crimes were murders against 5 women, who again were believed to be prostitutes at that time. At least 2 victims were prostitutes. The other women were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But it is still unknown how they met Jack the Ripper. The murders occurred in Whitechapel, London, London's East End. Whitechapel was an overcrowded area full of bars, brothels, drug houses, low-income homes, prostitutes, drug addicts, and those trying to get their next fix. A man would stalk the slum, dirty streets of Whitechapel late at night when barely anyone was around. The quiet, dirty, echoey streets and fog made it hard to see, but gave cover for Jack and his murderous intent. The victims, known as the Canonical Five, were Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. Each murder was marked by a brutal attack to which the victims' throats were slashed and their bodies were mutilated in a manner suggesting that the killer had a significant knowledge of human anatomy. However, it is still debated whether the killer had this knowledge. But even in the slayings, the organs were carefully removed and the killer seemed to know the way around the body and internally. He knew what parts of the body he wanted to keep as his personal trophies. The first victim, Mary Ann Nichols, was found on August 31st of 1888. Her body was discovered in Bucks Row, with her throat cut and her abdomen mutilated. Just over a week later, on September 8th, Annie Chapman was found in Hanbury Street with similar injuries. The brutality of these 2 murders sent shockwaves through the local community. A local prominent citizen named George Lusk formed the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, basically a mob to search the streets at night, but to also go after who they believed did the 2 killings. Lusk and his mob blamed the local Jewish population of Whitechapel because a leather apron was found near the body of Annie Chapman. Lusk and his mob, blaming the local Jews, believed it was a local Jew named John Pizer, who was a cobbler or a bootmaker, and his nickname was Leather Apron. Pizer, Leather Apron, was known to have attacked a few women or threatened prostitutes, so Lusk's mob attacked him thinking he did the slayings. The police arrested Pizer, searched his home, but he did have alibis and was not even in Whitechapel at the time of the killings. Lusk's mob stalking the streets for 3 weeks did seem to do the trick, because Jack did not even be able to murder. But Jack did stalk the streets. He watched the police do their rounds. He watched the mob and timed them, because when Jack struck, he struck like a wild man needing a drug fix. Frederick Abeline, a local detective in Whitechapel, began to arrest men who he believed had some type of connection with the 2 killings. While this was going on, news reporters and civilians sent hundreds of letters to the police in a fun game of being the killer. Many letters were fakes, but one stood out among the rest. This was the Dear Boss letter. Dear Boss, I keep on hearing the police have caught me, but they won't fix me just yet. I have laughed when they look so clever and talk about being on the right track. That joke about leather apron gave me real fits. I am down on whores and I shan't kite ripping them till I do get buckled. Grand work the last job was. I gave the lady no time to squeal. How can they catch me now? I love my work and I want to start again. You will soon hear of me with my funny little games. I saved some of the proper red stuff in a ginger beer bottle over the last job to write with, but it went thick like glue. I can't use it. Red ink is fit enough, I hope. Ha ha ha. The next job I do, I shall clip the lady's ears off and send to the police officers just for jolly, wouldn't you? Keep this letter back till I do a bit more work. Then give it out straight. My knives are nice and sharp and I want to get to work right away if I get a chance. Good luck. Yours truly, Jack the Ripper. Don't mind me giving the trade name. P.S. Wasn't good enough to post this before I got all the red ink off my hands. Curse it. No luck yet. They say I'm a doctor now. Ha 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 ha. This letter is where we give the name Jack the Ripper. The police did not believe the letter was real, but with Jack stopped for 3 weeks and eating his fix, he attacked. On September 30th, a night now known as the Double Event, 2 more victims were claimed. Elizabeth Stride was found in Dutfield's yard with her throat cut, but her body was not mutilated, suggesting that the killer was interrupted somehow. Less than an hour later, Catherine Eddowes was found in Mitre Square with extensive mutilations. With Catherine Eddowes, her body was mutilated at the worst time. Her nose was cut off, her face was cut, her abdomen was destroyed, her kidney was taken, and a graffiti writing was spotted near the body. The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing. We can't know if Jack wrote this, but Jewish hate was on the rise in London, so if Jack did write the message, he was trying to take suspicions off of him and onto the Jew, perhaps. Perhaps Jewish suspects? Perhaps Jack was not Jewish at all? We won't know. Rereading the Dear Boss letter, the line, "I shall cut the lady's ears off," Catherine Eddowes' earlobe was sliced, but not cut off. A postcard arrived on the 1st of October from Jack. I was not coddling, dear old boss, when I gave you the tip. You'll hear about Saucy Jack's works tomorrow. Double event this time. Number 1 squealed a bit, couldn't finish straight off. Had not time to get the ears off for police. Thanks for keeping the last letter back. Till I go to work again, Jack the Ripper. The postcard had details about the murders before the police even released it. Either both letter and postcard were faked by a noisy reporter, or it was truly the writings of Jack. The last letter was sent to George Lusk on October 16th, the leader of the vigilance movement in Whitechapel. With it was a small package. It was the other half of Catherine Eddowes' kidney, and parts of it were missing. Lusk sent it to the police. The letter said, "From hell." "From hell, Mr. Lusk, sir. I send you half the kidney I took from one woman, preserved it for you. 2 other piece I fried and ate, and it was very nice. I may send you the bloody knife that took it out if you only wait a while longer. Signed, catch me when you can, Mr. Lusk." The letter and postcards were written so properly, but the "From Hell" letter had spelling mistakes, bad wording and grammar, and could barely be read. Now, if Jack was a doctor, he would be educated, and many doctors or men with not college degrees were being questioned or arrested on possible connections to the murders. Perhaps similar to the Jewish graffiti, was Jack writing sloppily, adding misspelled words to throw off the scent of him being a doctor or an educated man? Police were baffled, many angry with the crimes and being accused by Lusk's mob and regular townspeople. Many police retired or moved to other areas to not deal with the murders anymore. As the letters and even the murders got worse over time, Jack's last murder would be his most evil and diabolical yet. The final canonical victim, Mary Jane Kelly, was discovered on November 9th in her room at Miller's Court. Her body was horrifically mutilated, marking it the most gruesome of all the murders. Kelly had a room. Unlike the other women who Jack killed in the streets or dark alleyways, Kelly's room was away from prying eyes. Jack's darkest fantasies were able to be unwound and come to life in this tiny room. The room, bed, walls were coated in blood. The body of Kelly was nearly unrecognizable as a lady or even a person. This was the last victim of Jack. Some victims were found later with their throats slit, but not mutilated, or anything terrible to the extent of the Ripper killings. Just copycat killers, who many were eventually caught. Despite numerous investigations and a plethora of suspects, the true identity of Jack the Ripper remains unknown to this day. But theories and suspects keep arising. Here are a few, and I will then give my theory on who Jack the Ripper was in part 2 of this video. The very first suspect was Prince Albert Victor, grandson of Queen Victoria, rumored to have committed the murders during fits of insanity caused by syphilis. Never to be proven though he did spend time in Whitechapel. Another thing was, he never had syphilis, so it's a weird conspiracy theory why people still believe Prince Albert Victor was the Ripper. H.H. Holmes, an American serial killer who some believe continued his killing spree while in London. Holmes arrived in London just before the very first killings, and left shortly after Kelly's death. However, Holmes killed for money. Jack the Ripper killed for the thrill, for fun, and to bring his dark, sick fantasies to life. Aaron Kosminski, a Polish barber and prime suspect at the time with recent DNA evidence suggesting a possible link to at least one of the killings, but the DNA is questioned for it was a small amount, and if there was a killing, there would be tons of more DNA left on the scene. Only a small bit was found, a scarf from the victim, only known lock of clothing supposedly worn by one of the victims. It is still proven if even the victim wore that scarf. The rest is all gone with history though. Kosminski even killed 3 of his wives, but he poisoned them and eventually was hanged for his crimes. Walter Sickert, a famous Victorian painter accused by some due to his disturbing artworks and alleged confessions of being the Ripper. His artworks are gruesome and do show lots of crime scenes. Again, though, however, each killing spot was photographed, sketched out. It's not hard to find pictures of each crime scene to paint. That is the very first episode on Jack the Ripper. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for part 2 on who I believe was Jack the Ripper. And it wasn't any of the names I just read off. Thanks, everybody. Stay tuned for part 2.